There are two things in life that can annoy me. The first one is cliffhangers, and the second is the good old what-if scenarios. The reason why these annoy me is because only one option out of the many possibilities that could actually happen, happened. What if Jax pressed the blue button? Would they have escaped? Would the abstractions return? Is Bubble telling the truth? Abel made an appearance? Kane set this up for real? Is Kane and Abel even real? What is going on in this episode of the Amazing Digital Circus? Hello, Ninjas, welcome back. Today, I shall be giving my review of the latest episode in the series known as the Amazing Digital Circus Beach episode. Also, I'm back from college. Yes! That means better mic quality for like a month, and then we're going back to bad mic quality. Alright. Anyways, I'll give out the goods, the bads, and slightly, I say that with the emphasis, slightly explore the lore implications. Lore implications are so massive in this video, it deserves its own separate YouTube video for me to talk about. For today's video, I'll just be giving my thoughts on the episode, so don't expect too much out of it. All credit goes to Glitch Productions for making this awesome series. The social links, as well as Gooseworx' YouTube, Twitter, and link to this episode will be at the top of the description. Intro done, now time for the review. Go, go, go! This episode begins with the crew reading a note from Kane that he is off to go get supplies, even though that was a lie. He used the power of the Chinese door, which he obviously made up, and then told them that he doesn't have an actual adventure for them. And then asks that they should give him a suggestion, and then Gangle does that, and then in which he suggests to check out the digital lake, since there's some NPCs over there they get to interact with, and they really haven't actually interacted outside the circus area, because remember beginning, there's a huge lake area, there's a playground, they haven't even touched any of that, they've just been staying in the circle, in which, obviously they do, and this episode is quite normal for now. You see them hanging out on the beach, Sir Palo makes an appearance, you do love to see that. And then we see Jax far away from everyone, since he almost abstracted. Which makes sense, because when you are about to abstract, you tend to distance yourself away from everyone. You want to be away from others, not harm you. In reality, you need to be with the others to not allow you to abstract. That's how you stay in the circus AI digital world, by sticking to the crew and being happy. After this interaction, we see Jax walk back to his room, but before we see the inside Jax's room, we notice that Pomni looks at Jax and then sees the mannequin again from episode 5 and episode 6. It's like he's been watching them. Now we enter Jax's room for the first time. The only rooms we have seen so far is Zubal's, Kaufmo, and Pomni's room. It's dark in there, which makes sense. He's about to, he was very close to abstracting, and it makes sense with a dark room, just like Kaufmo's room. But we're going to use a still shot here for a moment. We're going to examine what's going on in this room right here. Now, I'm going to go more in depth during next week's video when I talk about lore implications, but for now, let's go scratch the surface. We see the matching of the pink and purple style coloring of the rabbit, just like how Jax looks. It's all colorful, just like how it is with Jax, like I said before. Now, in episode 1, we know that purple key leads to Kaufmo's room, since he opened the door for Pomni and Rags to check in on him. And we know that Jax has rooms through everyone's door, okay? However, there's another key at the desk next to his room. You could see the purple key that led to Kaufmo's room. And we know that the portrait, he loved Kaufmo, and he loved Ribbit. And he has seen them get very close to abstract, and seen them be on the near edge of abstraction before. So my theory is, the yellow key leads to Ribbit's room, and the purple key leads to Kaufmo's room, which was already confirmed. But I think that yellow key indicates that he had access to Ribbit's room and Kaufmo's room. So, by him saying in the previous episode that he's seen people abstract and seen what they're like before they abstract, I assume that they probably know what happened on the inside of their rooms, and he was really having depression and stuff from losing all of his best friends. I also think that those portraits are probably other people he has been friends with. And during this optical illusion that we saw with Jax, it was the moment before abstraction, because you can see the colors of his eyes are very similar to what we saw with Kaufmo and Queener with their eyes during abstraction. It's very bright, it's very colorful, and we saw Kaufmo's face multiple times in that optical illusion, as well as Ribbit's. So that must mean that abstraction is essentially that. That's the moments you are to go through before them. However, maybe being abstracted isn't as bad as we thought. It's going to be interesting to wonder if Kane is twisting the words of the circus crew that going abstract is bad. Maybe abstracting is the way to escape. We saw him face Ribbit and Kaufmo multiple times in illusion. Plus we saw Ribbit's hand. Whenever he went to go touch it, that illusion began. So maybe it's a signal that he can join them in the outside world. Checking over to the wall, obviously as I mentioned before, 9 portraits We won't know what the other 8 are. Maybe it's other members of the circus he deeply cared about before they abstracted, and he doesn't want to think about those moments since he had maybe been the reason they abstracted. We saw the crash out with episode 5. Maybe that led to something, actually. Maybe he has been the reason that everyone else is abstracted. His deep friends have cared about. That's why he has inner depression feeling, because he doesn't want to get close to anyone and not abstract again. Let's now shift gears to the escape plan. They use all of Jax's keys he's collected over the time in the circus, until he just opens the door and BAM! They're in. And now you learn about this mannequin and Kinger's experience, which was told multiple times in the episode. We'll explore that later. For now, let's pull up a still shot of the blueprints of this circus world. We are told that each of the circus members are stuck in a stasis chamber pod being linked up to this digital world, just like Kane. But he needs to make their mind to keep thinking in order to keep them in here, making them stay in this world. This blueprint is something I do not want to talk about. It's plain and simple to understand the system. I also don't give a shit because this is not the important part. What the important part is what it says in the bottom right of this screen. Okay, now it's very hard to see because it's very pencil written, and I think it's supposed to be something that isn't really supposed to be shown, but it says old CNA employees, co-workers, and then it says not abstracted. Let's dive deeper into that, shall we? We see 5 names shown. 4 that were scribbled out, 1 is not. The one that isn't is Kinger. Now, we know this for a while that he helped maintain the circus and is one of the workers. We know this because he can only remember things in the dark. He has helped Ragatha and Pomni stay afloat in the circus world and has crafted Butterfly to give Ragatha the lost heart in the beginning of the gunfight in episode 6. It's also a very mischievous man who knows a lot about the circus and has also been there the longest, so it would make sense that he would work as being one of the co-workers here. Let's talk about the scribbled names, because that's what I'm going to talk about. In next week's video, I'll explore more about this because there's a lot to talk about here. From my viewing, it seems like Kaufmo was named since the last name there is barely scribbled out, and you can see letters of his name written out there. You can see Kaufmo. It's very easily see here that it says Kaufmo. Could Kaufmo be one of the co-workers? Maybe he was, we don't know. It's the other 3 though I'm unsure about. I believe the 2 names under Kinger are Jax and Ribbit. I'm guessing it is Jax since the bubble letters that are written out seem to spell Jax. And if you look at it with like really sharp eyes, you could see the J, you could see the A, you could see the X, but it also could be something else. Now, I do believe that this is not Abel. I don't think this is Abel with the Kane thing, but I do believe that the paper here is actually a real thing. I think Kane did not make this up or anything. I think this is the true thing, like the stasis pods and the layout of the circus, you know, how to escape and everything. I think that's still true, but I don't think that is Abel. Doesn't make any sense. Why would he be spying on them whenever that's Kane's doing? No, that makes no sense. Why would that be Kane asking a mannequin to go view them? That makes absolutely no sense. But this paper here makes me believe that maybe Jax might have been one of the co-workers of this area, and he brought Kaufmo in, and he brought Ribbit in. Now, I do also want to mention about that last one, because remember, at the end of this episode, Kinger mentions about the very first abstraction, Scratch. Maybe that last one that's shown right there is named Scratch. You could see an S right there, but that's the last one I do not know. So if you guys in the comments know what that last one could be, please let me know. And like I said, it's not Abel, and I know that for a damn fact. What is happening here? Because how is Jax's name shown? How is Kaufmo's name shown? And how's Ribbit's name shown when we all know that Jax cares about Ribbit and Kaufmo as much as he did before they abstracted? And not to mention, Jax, whose entire time was the adventure, how would he know that? How would he know that? There is no possible way that he would actually know this. Something is going on here, and we're gonna dive way more deep in next week's video. Let's flip over to the first part of the plan, where we see Jax and Kane have a nice dinner together. Kane obviously knew this was his adventure, so easily Jax is able to get the card out of his mouth and, excuse me, what did he just say? The out of context jokes in the series is top tier, and I love it. Then we see the mannequin, Ragatha, and Pomni talk about Kinger as they head to the administrator's office to pick up the bypass keys to enter the console. Time and time again, Kinger is mentioned, and the mannequin, while I do believe it is not Abel, may have a connection towards Kane, or maybe the mannequin. Gangle and Zubul then tell Kinger that there may be ways to escape, just let him know, and then Jax turns with the key. In which, then we head back to the other 3, grab the keys to the console, in which the mannequin specifically asks if they should bring Kinger. in which he agrees to keep them in the path, because Cain wants that. But before that, he says, when he uses it responsibly. Quite fascinating. Quite fascinating to say that when Kinger can only remember in the dark. What do you mean he can only use it responsibly? It's going to be very interesting to look back and see if Kinger used it irresponsibly or responsibly. Maybe it's a cover up the circus. I wouldn't be surprised at all. The crew then meets back with the circus, and Pomni hands the key to Kinger. Now, reminder, when he's in the dark, he can remember his memories. He gets a memory that he wanted to tell Pomni, but right before then, he sees the light and completely forgets. What was he gonna say? That's the thing. However, though, do you remember, he looked at the hand, right? He looked at the hand and then remembered it. So, that leads more to the fact that he is a co-worker of CNA, but what was he going to say? That was the biggest question, because then this led into more interesting lore because of the later half at the very end with the console thing, which we're about to get into in just a moment. The mannequins mentioned how King had trouble fixing collision of squares, so they used that to jump up into the hot air balloon where his office was. And there we see many adventures that Cain has taken them on. Jax looks at this Winter Wonderland sphere. Could that be where he, Ribbit, and Kaufman went on an adventure? Maybe that was where everything started going downhill? Once again, it could be just a mislead, which is the one thing I do dislike about this episode. I understand lore implications are meant to trick you and all, but when there are too much lore implications in a single episode, more than we have ever gotten in any of the episodes in the series, it can get pretty annoying. On to the final part of this episode, the console. Now, the console states that if you press the red button, the console will shut down but keep everybody in the circus. However, if you click the blue button, it will end the game and disconnect all the players. Now, we can see that Pomni is stalling because since Kinger works at the circus, he knows what button to press. So obviously, Pomni wants to stall to have Kinger's mind remember what to do since in the dark. And not to mention, Pomni's unsure if there's a trick to it, you know? Is something going to happen to us or something? Is this really not actually going to make us leave and everything? So that's why Pomni tries to stall, so now that Kinger can remember and be like, oh, you got to click this one. But then again, I'm going to take some inspiration from the community here. The community has shown that the word blue showed up multiple times. Blue. Kinger said blue. Make the right choice, was on the right side, etc., etc. So, could the button be real? Could the button actually have them leave? Maybe. We won't know forever, which is the unfortunate part. But I do also want to remind you guys, because Pomni asked the mannequin, will it be dark in there? See? Foreshadowing. And as they argue, Jax gets remembrance of his hometown in real life, which doesn't tell us a lot, but it's suburban, so maybe he used his world as a way to escape his problems in the real world. The circus world, obviously. After he freaks out and presses the red button, he doesn't realize that he had done that, and then everyone yells at him, and BAM! He was right. Cain pops down and says, that concludes the adventure! Jax then crashes out and notices that he controlled his mind into leading them here, since he already knew it was an adventure. And it calls him out, in which Cain then gets frightened and then says, hold on now! And now we learn that he could put modifiers on, like the stupid sauce and vegan Jax. Are you kidding me, Cain? You made one of my favorite characters, Ragatha, become the stupid sauce? Are you serious? But I did call the horses part with the ranch and knowing that she was a farm girl, so I will take that. And then they put the puzzle pieces together since he created the names! And then Kinger just goes out of nowhere. Scratch. The first abstraction. Cain starts to freak out and he's slowly starting to realize that they're figuring out, and then leaves the episode. Are you kidding me? That's how it ends? That's it? That's how you're gonna end it? You're gonna have to wait till March 20th for the next episode? What do you mean, bro? There's too much happening. You gave us so much. We need to digest it for 3 straight. I can't. I enjoyed that this episode was a lot about the lore behind the circus and less about the adventure. But I also don't like how much lore was shown off. We get lore drops here and there, but not this much where we need to uncover each one. But that's okay, we still have 2 more episodes to fill in the gaps. I just hope that there's nothing left unanswered when the series ends. That's always one thing I do dislike. Whenever there's questions left unanswered. Unless you do it correctly, because there is the case where you can do it correctly, but it is very difficult to. Overall, I love this episode. Not my favorite, but still a great episode overall. Lots of lore implications we will need to uncover before March 20th, which is when episode 8 shall release. And then we can find more and more about what is actually going on. Is Abel actually real? Is Cain faking the Cain and Abel thing to mislead them? Is this all just for Cain's happiness? What will happen in episode 8? Next week, I shall answer those questions. Overall, I'll give this episode a 9 out of 10. And you're not able! Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. As mentioned before, I didn't want to get too deep into the waters of what the lore we're showing in this episode since there's a lot to unpack and dive into, and it deserves its own video. So here is the upcoming video schedule, updated from updated from the Wednesday video. Next Friday 19, I'll be talking about all lore that was shown in this episode and give out predictions and make connections to previous episodes to some characters and about Circus. On the 26th, I'll create a gap between the digital Circus videos, explain why Tricolor in Splatoon 3 sucks, and how you can fix it in the upcoming games of Splatoon 4 if that becomes a thing, which I think it will. Then, on January 2nd, you'll get the first Gangle's development video, as promised, from the previous 4 I had back in August. Then on January 7th, I'll have my first weekly recaps of Bowling SMP, which is going to be really exciting. I can't wait for that. And lastly, January 9th will be Zubal's development video. And I also want to mention that after episode 8, I'll have a development video for every single character up to that point. And then episode 9, when that's finished, I'm going to have a way more deeper development between every single character. It's probably going to be like 30 plus minutes long for each character. And I'll also combine all my reviews into one once episode 9's review comes out. So don't worry about that. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, send a video to your friends, and subscribe to me for more videos. Hit the little bell so you get notified for when I upload. Let me know in the comments how I can improve upon my video. And let me know what's your guys' thoughts on this episode. Was it good? Was it bad? What's your guys' thoughts on the lore? You guys think there's too much? You guys think there's a lot? And as always, all credit goes to Glitch for making this wonderful series. Thank you for watching. I'll see y'all later, my ninjas. Peace! Ninja Joe signing out.